ramen has played such a huge part in my life. Like, you don't know how many times as a kid.
Well, I guess so for me too.
Dude, just
sadly,
being this broke kid from southwestern Virginia. An easily accessible hot meal.
Yeah.
Though it may not have been the most nutritious thing.
Not at all.
Was very welcome.
Yeah.
I can remember times when my aunt or somebody who was babysitting me or my mom or whatever brought me a bowl of ramen when I was hungry, and I was just like, dude,
oh yeah,
I am so fucking hyped right now. And you know, sometimes with a grilled cheese sandwich or whatever, but you know, just that in general was a huge win in my book. And then as I got older, I realized, you know, there's better than just like top ramen out there. There's like better quality noodles, we got like the seasoning.
It's probably like 25 cents a pack now, but back then it was probably like 12 cents a pack. It was 10. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I grew up and my grandmother would make it for me. My brother, we were so unaware that we would call it ramen noodles.
Or Roman. I've even heard people call it Roman
make
noodles.
Go make some ramen noodles, and I liked mine soupy. And my grandma would put butter in mine, which wasn't even real butter.
I had no idea that it was a Japanese thing.
No, I didn't know that.
I just knew it was soup.
Yeah.
And even in like jail and in prison, people trade
like
ramen. They call them soups.
Oh, soups.
You put some soups on my card. I need soups, or I was trading soups.
On your books.
On my books. Yeah. Trading soups and all this stuff.
But yeah, my grandma would make me. It was like such a good thing, like such a sweet, you know, thing that's a part of my childhood, which is really sad. And then growing up, you know, as an adult, I never fucking ate it because I don't want that shit. And then I got really sick, like somewhere in my 20s, and I was like, man, like that's what I want. And you made it for me, and I was like, this is shit. I can't even eat half of it. My stomach hurts.
So I had to introduce you to
better ramen.
Good ramen. Yeah. So I mean, even when I was first in college, when I had just graduated and I was super broke and had nothing, it was like cup of noodles.
I don't like that.
Ramen. Once again, I mean, it was just what it had to be. It was that or nothing. You know,
you gotta
a lot
like
of times.
skip the square pack. Not the cup. I don't like the cup.
I mean, anyway, that had to start somewhere. Yeah. And so I saw a video recommended that is called How an Ex-Prisoner Built a $7 billion Ramen Empire.
So obviously this isn't the history of ramen where it came from. This is a company, I'm thinking. Some kind of company... Or
it's an empire, a ramen empire.
But like, I don't even know what that, like, what could that possibly
worth $7 billion. You're about to find out.
That's crazy.
Billion. You're about to get edumacated. This is from a content creator named Hungry History by, what is that? I can't even read that.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Hungry History.
A JoJo?
Yeah. So here we go.
In 1947, a man was walking through the devastated streets of Osaka, Japan on a cold winter night.
Okay, fuck, maybe
In the aftermath of World War II, the entire country was ravaged by poverty and hunger. Much of the city's infrastructure was destroyed, leaving millions homeless, and food was scarce due to a terrible harvest season. With little to eat, many people waited in long lines in the shivering cold to get a meal. During his walk, the man stumbled upon one of these lines in front of a dimly lit stall, and a delicious aroma caught his attention. Sensing something special, he approached the end of the stall and saw people gathered over bowls of steaming ramen noodle soup. From this experience, he realized how much people were willing to go through to enjoy the nearly universal comfort food of noodle soup. But more importantly, he was deeply convicted to help feed his country so no one would go hungry again. What he witnessed would change the course of his life. Despite being sent to prison for tax evasion and becoming broke and penniless due to a business failure, the man persisted and persevered. Eventually, he built a company now worth $7 billion and spawned a brand new industry that feeds more than 300 million people every day. This is the inspiring story of Momofuku Ando and the rise of instant ramen.
Damn.
I was wrong.
Ando was born in 1910 in Taiwan while the country was under Japanese occupation. Tragically, his parents died when he was a young child, and so he was raised by his grandparents who owned a kimono fabric store. From an early age, he gained first-hand experience of running a business, and he developed a strong entrepreneurial drive that carried throughout his life. When he was 22, he followed in his family's footsteps and started a textile business. He eventually moved to Japan and enrolled in Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto. Over the next 2 decades, Ando became involved in many business ventures such as the manufacturing of slide projectors, charcoal production. He sold engine parts, built prefabricated houses, and eventually founded a school which soon landed him in trouble with the government. In 1948, he was convicted of tax evasion and served 2 years in jail for providing scholarships to his students, which was illegal at the time.
Aww.
However, this wouldn't be his last mistake. Ando served his time, and once he was released at the age of 40, he started a new career in the banking industry and worked his way up. Within several years, he became the president of a credit union. During that time, he was able to provide a stable environment for his wife and 3 kids. But in 1957, tragedy struck again. A chain reaction of events caused the credit union to go bankrupt. Not only did Ando lose his job, he lost his fortune, which was invested in the union. Suddenly, everything he had worked for was lost, and the only asset his family had left was their home. His life had hit rock bottom, and he was consumed by guilt and shame. In that dark moment, his mind kept replaying his memory from years ago of the people waiting in the shivering cold for a warm bowl of noodle soup. He recalled the hungry faces of the people standing in line, and he could relate to their feelings of hopelessness and worry. He even remembered the deep desire he had to end hunger in his country because of the suffering he had witnessed that night. He began to think about how special and comforting a warm ramen soup is to many people. Then he started considering how appealing it would be if people could make ramen quickly and not have to wait. A ramen that would be affordable but tasty and easy to prepare. So easy that you just need hot water. But most important of all, the ramen would last a long time so people could store it away for when it was difficult or impossible to prepare most meals. If people had ramen like this, he was certain people would never go hungry again. Ando realized this was an opportunity to invent something the world has never seen, something that the world needed, something that the world would love to eat, and something that promised him redemption from his guilt and shame. So he got to work, and as the story goes, he transformed a backyard shed into a makeshift laboratory with all the kitchen tools and materials he needed to make ramen noodles from scratch. For an entire year, he dedicated his life to making his ramen a reality without a single day of rest, and slept only 4 hours a night.
Ugh.
Day after day, he experimented with different ingredients, and he failed countless times. But he didn't give up. Through constantly learning by trial and error, he eventually came to a key realization, that making noodles is all about balance. He had to get the right mix of ingredients to get the right texture and taste. So with more iterations, he finally arrived at a noodle recipe that achieved the perfect balance he was looking for. However, making the noodles was just the easy part. Ando still hadn't solved the most challenging problem of all. He needed to figure out how to make his noodles non-perishable, something that has never been done before. Not only did he have to figure out a way to dry his noodles so they were preserved for a long time, but he also had to make the noodles ready to eat by just adding hot water. Ando experimented with different ways to dry his noodles, but nothing worked. This went on for months and months, but he couldn't find a solution. One night, he happened to be in the kitchen while his wife Masako was cooking. He observed her preparing tempura and deep frying it. Her tempura batter was made of flour and water, similar to his noodles. She coated her vegetables and meat in the batter and fried them in the hot oil, which caused the water to evaporate, leaving behind tiny cavities after it was dehydrated. He suddenly realized that deep frying was the answer all along. This was his big breakthrough moment. Back in his shed, he tried frying his noodles in hot oil, and it forced out the moisture, giving them the non-perishable quality he was aiming for. They became hard and stiff and would not decompose or deteriorate. Then he took the dry noodles and poured hot water over them. Within about 2 minutes, the noodles absorbed the water through the tiny holes made during the frying process and made them soft again. He stirred and took a bite and was relieved that the noodles were tender and chewy just as he expected. His persistence had paid off. Ando finally invented the product we now know as instant ramen.
Badass.
On August 25th, 1958, Ando launched chicken ramen, the world's first instant noodles. He decided on flavoring his ramen soup with chicken broth to have broad appeal. In his 2002 autobiography, The Story of the Invention of Instant Ramen, he wrote that by using chicken soup, instant ramen managed to circumvent religious taboos when it was introduced in different countries. Hindus might not eat beef, and Muslims may not eat pork, but there is not a single culture, religion, or country that forbids the eating of chicken. Despite the innovation and the convenience of his instant ramen, it wasn't a runaway success at first.
The hell?
And this was mainly due to the high cost. When it was introduced, it cost 35 yen at a time when people could buy a bundle of udon noodles for 6 yen, so food wholesalers and distributors were hesitant to buy the product because they didn't believe it would sell. Another issue was that Japanese people at the time preferred fresh food, which made his packaged processed product less appealing. Ando needed a catalyst to get his product mainstream. His opportunity struck in 1959 when Mitsubishi Corp, a massive Japanese conglomerate, approached Ando's ramen company, Nissan Food, to help launch a far-reaching corporate campaign to lift the nation out of poverty. In an effort to get the country back on its feet during the post-war industrialization boom, Mitsubishi wanted to help feed the poor so that they could work in the factories and participate in the economic growth of the country. Mitsubishi favored Ando's instant ramen because it could be stored for a long time and could be easily distributed to distant areas of the country where poverty was most widespread. After this, chicken ramen quickly gained a reputation among Japanese consumers and sales took off. Demand grew so rapidly in those early years that Ando's production line had a hard time keeping up with the orders, as the wholesalers and distributors, who were once hesitant just a year ago, waited in long lines with their trucks to get Ando's ramen into grocery shelves. While his product was revolutionary, the insatiable demand for it can be partly attributed to the massive changes happening in Japanese society at the time. With assistance from the US, the country was undergoing rapid urbanization as it rebuilt after the war. The economy was booming as people went to work, started businesses, and new industries cropped up overnight. The country was beginning to prosper, and a middle class began to emerge that had even more purchasing power than before the war. However, people were spending more time at work too, for better and for worse. In the midst of this economic and social transformation, instant ramen became a staple of the new middle class, where working families were short on time but hungry for comfort food after a long day. Ando had bigger ambitions though. He wanted to take his product international, but no one could have predicted how he was going to change instant ramen forever. In 1966, he traveled to Europe and the United States to meet with distributors who were interested in selling chicken ramen. As the story goes, in one of these meetings with a US supermarket chain supplier, Ando served samples of his ramen, but noticed that some of the people broke the noodle block into smaller chunks, placed them into paper cups, added hot water, and ate with forks. Once they finished, they threw the cup and fork in the trash. From this experience, he realized that Western culture had different eating habits than Japanese culture, and he had to adapt. He decided he needed to make it even easier to enjoy instant ramen by packaging it in a cup. Now, while we may take for granted its simple design and function, Ando and his company spent 5 years developing what we now know as cup noodles. At one point, there were nearly 40 prototypes under development to achieve the perfect container that would be the packaging, the cooking, and the serving bowl all in one. Not only that, but the size and shape had to be suitable for holding in one hand. At the end of the development, Ando settled on an oversized styrofoam cup due to its lightweight, good insulation, and low cost. On September 18, 1971, cup noodles was introduced in Japan. However, as before, retailers were reluctant to sell the product because it was 4 times more expensive than the regular instant ramen at the time, and it was considered bad manners to be eating while standing. Ando realized he needed to give the new product momentum.
Is that Arnold?
And so he spent heavily on advertisements and sales promotions. His company created vending machines that dispensed hot water so customers would prepare and eat cup noodles immediately after purchase. And he focused on dense pedestrian zones for direct sampling events that drew large crowds of young people. Eventually, cup noodle was introduced to the US market in 1973 and then to other Asian countries, Latin America, and Europe. Just like with the original instant ramen, The flavors and ingredients were developed to reflect the cultural preferences and tastes of each country and region. Cup noodles quickly became an international phenomenon and is now a staple in billions of people's homes. Today, the world consumes more than 100 billion servings of instant noodles a year, according to the World Instant Noodle Association. It has become a source of sustenance around the world that is unrivaled because of its affordability, convenience, and durability. It's difficult to underestimate how many people have been sustained by instant ramen during some of the most difficult times in modern history, just as its inventor hoped for more than 60 years. As for Ando, he passed away in 2007 due to heart failure at the age of 96 in his hometown of Osaka, Japan. Even though he officially retired in 2005, he remained active with his company, so much so that just days before his death, he visited the Nissan factory in Osaka to give his annual New Year's message. But his reputation went far beyond his company. To this day, he is considered a national hero for helping to feed Japan. Thanks for watching.
Not just Japan, but I mean every broke-ass redneck that I know. Everybody. Yeah. Everybody. All us broke motherfuckers have been eating ramen.
And it's because of Mitsubishi. I mean, it's not big. It kicked off.
They invested in him. Mm-hmm. I would say that there's a bit of a butterfly effect here. Because you got to think, the reason that situation was going on in Japan the way that it was because of the nukes. Right? And who could have ever foreseen that would spawn, something like instant ramen to happen? What would it be like had that guy not had that thought in the middle of those circumstances?
Or if his parents hadn't died,
and you just never know.
Yeah.
You just never know. The influence and the ripple effect of circumstances and actions throughout time are pretty wild. And the fact that he had dreamed of helping hungry people and getting food out to people who are in need of that in a desperate time, and then you have starving college students, literally leaning on that, like around the entire world.
Yeah.
It's
crazy
to think about. And I mean, even you go to places, and I started noticing this more and more when I was younger, because there's, immigration from Mexico happening more and more throughout our lives. It wasn't as much as it has become throughout us becoming adults and everything. But you start to see in grocery stores them carrying different flavors of ramen, reflecting the fact that there are Mexican immigrants. So flavors that you could only find in Mexico make their way into like every gas station around here. And that used to not be a thing.
Yeah.
It used to be chicken, beef, oriental, shrimp, and that is it. But now you have like the lime shrimp and the chile lime and all that stuff. And it just is a reflection of that company, like it said in this video, taking the flavors from around the world and implementing them into the ramen, and they push that out. And it's genius to serve people that way, because we all have different flavors that remind us of home.
Yeah.
So very cool stuff. I also think it's brilliant, the whole chicken idea.
Oh yeah, for why he chose. Yeah.
Brilliant, dude.
Also, the fact that he spent as much time as he did. It wasn't like a group of like food scientist people.
The people who work at McDonald's or something.
Like trying to figure out how to do the noodle. Like this man was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sleep 4 hours every night.
How?
And figure this out and market it and sell it, and did all of it his damn self. And
pretty
then
badass.
Ended up feeding literally the world, not just his area.
Hey, Alex Robinson dropping $5
for the ramen.
For the ramen. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And awesome video. I really enjoyed it. So
I thought it was gonna be like, well, I was like, okay, 7 billion. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
But I was thinking it was gonna be like current day ex-convict. I don't know. Whenever I think, I was like, okay, like I know, like Chad said, people in jail, they're eating the ramen. Maybe there's like a ramen exchange.
Like a ramen, like the ramen cartel or something. No. But great video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our reaction to it. Yeah. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.